Good morning, Gold Creek. How you guys doing this morning? Come on, so good. Hey, if we haven't met yet, my name is Mike. I am on our youth team here at Gold Creek. I spend most of my Sundays over at our Woodinville location leading our high school ministry. But then I also get the opportunity to oversee our whole youth department here at Gold Creek. And so if you're in the room and you have a middle school student or a high school student, I just want to say thank you for entrusting us crazy youth pastors sometimes with your students, with the games and all of the things that we do. We just had our middle school students get back from camp. Just this upcoming week, we have a group of 41 students and leaders going to Mexico on a missions trip. And so I love being with our youth team here at Gold Creek. And I wouldn't be up here if it wasn't for my beautiful family. My wife, Hannah, we've been married 6 years here in August. And so, come on. Yeah, 6 years. I got it all figured out. We're dialed in. But we have 3 beautiful kids. A picture's gonna show up here. I have my oldest little girl. Her name is Rhodes. She turns 4 tomorrow. She's gonna be 4 years old. And then Ren, our middle daughter, just turned 2 back in April. And then my son, Roy, was born on May 2nd of this year. And so currently, for one more day, we have 3 kids under the age of 4. And so our life, if you've been there, you get it. It is, I don't know what I did to myself. It's just something that we got. But we are in a series titled Spiritual Vital Signs that we introduced last week. And as you saw in the video, and if you were here last week, one thing that you saw was we're kind of playing on that idea of an Apple Watch, where it gives you a sense of how you're doing physically. Like you can look at how many steps you're taking, you can look at your heart rate, all of those sorts of things to give you a sense of where you're at, to show you some of those vital signs. Last week, Pastor Nick was talking about his Whoop that he wears and how there's things that it tracks that he doesn't even understand. And I don't know if that's a him thing or a Whoop thing, but it just is what it is. And he's up here last week talking about how he's doing some sort of fitness thing. He's doing 75 hard. You've probably heard about it from him. Again, it's like, we get it. You're fit. And so one thing I just want to level set with you guys, if you've ever had a conversation with Nick or he's on stage talking about 75 hard, he counts preaching as a workout. And so I'm just going to leave that here. If that's not enough for you, we were doing 75 hard together a couple years ago, and we were texting back and forth, and I was about to go on a run, and he sent me a picture of his hot tub, and he says it's a recovery workout. So no, I'm not up here to roast Nick. That's not why I'm here. I'm so thankful for you, Nick, and your leadership, the way that you lead this church, you lead the staff, and ultimately your friendship to me. I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to preach this morning. I love you, man. But we're in this series on spiritual vital signs, and last week we introduced the topic of prayer. And we talked about how prayer is one of those things that connects us with God. It's kind of our communication. It's how we have intimacy with him and how we can get on the same page with him about what's going on in our lives and what he's trying to do in our lives. And this morning, what we're going to be talking about is another spiritual vital sign that I think is very, very important, which is the local church. Your connection to a place like this. And how it shouldn't just be something that you do, but it is something that you participate in that ultimately helps you in your life in so many different areas. I was doing some research this week, and I found that if people attend church, I read a study that says they are 22% more likely to not struggle with depression. Another research article in the Journal of Aging and Health showed that people that attend religious services weekly, for some reason, who knows, they live 7 years longer than other people. A Pew Research study showed that 66% of regular churchgoers say that they have a great support system, while those that don't attend regularly, only 31% say the same thing. And so what we do on a Sunday morning is not just something that we gather because it's fun and our kids have a good time. All those things are great, but it really has an impact on our lives. And this morning, you might be walking into this room and this thing called church is new to you. This might be your very first Sunday. This might be your very first Sunday in a long time, and it took a lot of faith, and it took a lot of guts to walk into a space like this because it's hard and it's uncomfortable and it's new. Maybe you're sitting here in the room and you haven't missed a Sunday in who knows how long. See, at the end of the day, I think we have to understand why it is that we're here. And so if you're following along in your outline, what I want to answer today is this: what is the church and why does it matter? What is the church and why does it matter? Because no matter where you fall on that spectrum, whether this is your first Sunday or you haven't missed one in years, we all walk in here with some preconceived notions about what this place is supposed to be. What it's supposed to feel like, how you're supposed to act. We all have an idea of what this is going to look like. And so this morning, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about some myths that we might carry into the room. So if you're following along in your outline, the first myth is this: that the church is a place where I put on a religious show. See, no matter where you're at in this room, I think that we can all agree that sometimes when we walk into a room like this, we can feel like we gotta act a certain way, look a certain way, talk a certain way. We have to put on a show. Or maybe you don't feel like you have to do that, but if you're honest, you look at the pastor that's on stage preaching, or the worship team, or maybe even the greeters at the door, and you're like, there is no way they are that happy. That's why I'm not at the doors, because I'm not that happy of a person. You see, we all have these preconceived notions about what the church is supposed to be. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, it says this. It says, I write these things to you, hoping to come to you soon. It's this guy named Paul. He's writing to this guy named Timothy, a young pastor, and he's kind of been giving him some advice on how the church is supposed to go. He says, but if I should be delayed, I have written so that you will know how people ought to conduct themselves in the household of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and foundation of truth. This guy, Paul, who wrote the majority of our New Testament, writing to these churches, is writing to a young pastor, not saying, hey, you need to put on a show to entertain everybody, you need to do this, that, and the other, but what he is saying is that there should be order to the church. There should be structure, there should be systems, there should be a way in which you conduct yourself as a church, not because we're trying to put on a show, but because it's the actual household of God. It's a building, it's a place that we have said, we are going to dedicate this place to the living God. And in a place like this is where we hear from God, where we celebrate what he's doing in our lives, and where he directs our steps. And so if the myth is that the church is a place where we put on a religious show, the truth is that the church is a place where I connect with a real God who really cares. You see, the church is not meant to entertain you, but sure, as we're thinking about the services and the kids ministry and the youth and the worship, we don't want it to be boring, because we don't serve a God that is boring. He created the universe. He spoke the world into existence. We want it to be something that connects us to a real God that really cares. You see, there's this story in the Bible. It's actually in the first book called Genesis, and there's this guy named Jacob, and he's on this journey of about 500 miles that he's traveling, and he finds himself in this one town to sleep for the night, and he ends up having this dream, this crazy dream. I don't know about you. Any people that have crazy dreams, you just have the most. I like never dream. I don't know if that says something about me and my mental health, but I don't remember any of them. My wife does. But he had a dream, and there was this staircase between heaven and where he was, and there was angels going up and down, and I was reading and I was studying about it, and basically what it was saying that there is a God that is present, a God that wants a connection with his people. And I want to jump in chapter 28, verses 16 through 17. It says, when Jacob awoke from his sleep, he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. He was afraid, said, what an awesome place this is. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. You see, he wakes up from this dream, and he's like, what was that experience? What is it that I just felt? What is it that I just saw? What was that? And all he could say was, surely this is the house of God and that the Lord is here. You see, I've had so many conversations here at Gold Creek, whether it's in our adult services or in our youth ministry, where students and people will come up to me afterwards and they're like, I don't know what just happened in there. I walked in just thinking I was going to attend church, and something in the worship, something in the message, I just felt something. There was something that hit me that was different, and it's kind of unexplainable. And what I want to encourage you with this morning is that that's you. You've walked into a church service before, and there was something in the worship or something within the day that just hit you, and it was a feeling you can't explain. That's the God of the universe knocking on the door of your heart. My encouragement for you this morning is to press into that. What is God trying to show you? What is God trying to speak? Because I believe we have a real God that really cares. Maybe you're in the room and you don't even know if you believe in God. You don't know where you stand on that. That's okay. We want you here. We want to introduce you to this God named Jesus. But maybe you're in the room and you're like, okay, you've crossed that line. You're like, I do believe there is a God, but I'm not 100% sure if he cares. You see, what I want to encourage you with this morning is that there's a real God. He really cares. He cares about you. He cares about what you're walking through. He cares about what you walked in with, your hopes, your dreams, your passions. He is a God that cares for you. The second myth is this, is that the church is a place for religious people who think that they're good. I don't know about you, but I know some people that are followers of Jesus that attend church that I'm just like, they are way better people than me. Whether it's real or it's fake, they act like they have it all together. In Mark chapter 2, it says this. It says, when the scribes who were Pharisees saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? When Jesus heard this, he told them, it is not those who are well who need a doctor, but those who are sick. I didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners. See, the Pharisees were the most influential religious group of this time. And they're asking Jesus, the Jesus we just worshiped, the Jesus we talk about on Sunday morning, why is it that he's sitting with sinners and tax? Why is he doing that? And Jesus' very simple response is, I didn't come for people that have it all together. I didn't come for those who are perfect. I came for those who are hurting and are broken and are sick and need redemption, who need me, who have a little bit of a story. See, I think if we're honest with ourselves in the room, wherever you find yourself walking in this morning, sure, your life on the outside, mine included, looks pretty good. I'm really good at holding it together. Go look on my Instagram. My family's beautiful. You saw the photo. It doesn't look like that, like ever, okay? I think we can all relate to that, but if we're honest, I think if we were to pull some layers back in our lives, if you were to allow someone in to peer around the corner, to look into the shadows, I think that we can all say there's probably some things in here that we're not too proud of, that we know we're not exactly who we're supposed to be. This is exactly the person that Jesus wants a relationship with. See, I remember when I was 19 years old, I was playing baseball at a school in Idaho, Lewis Clark State. And my freshman year, I was the starting shortstop, and I was pumped up. I felt like I was on top of the world, okay? And I was living if you were to imagine a non-Jesus person playing college sports, I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do as a college athlete. Not good things, but I was participating, okay? And I remember my life started to kind of spiral out of control. It was after my freshman season. I went back to Puyallup, which is where I'm from. Shouts out to the 253. The 253 is a great place. Don't let Nick dog on it. But I was back for the summer, and my life was starting to spiral out of control. Things were starting to kind of fall apart. The life I was living was starting to kind of take over a little bit. And I remember I was home with my family, and things that I was doing, the decisions I were making wasn't just affecting me anymore, it was starting to affect the people around me. And I remember my parents sat me down at one point and they just said, hey, Mike, if this is the way you want to live your life, if this is what you're gonna do, it's not gonna happen in our household. And I remember that moment being 19, having it all figured out. I'm like, I'm good, man, I'm out. And I left. I hopped in my 2003 Suburban with the two 12-inch subwoofers, and I went back to Lewiston, Idaho with all the answers. And guess what happened? My life kept spiraling out of control. I got deeper and deeper in my ways, less in control of my life. And I remember one morning specifically, this is the beginning of August. I didn't even have to be there until September for school. And I ran into an old friend of mine. Her name's Jenna, and she wasn't a Jesus person when I met her about 6-8 months before. And she looked at me. We hadn't talked in months, and she just looks at me dead in the eyes. I didn't know why she was there, but she had given her life to Jesus. And she looks at me and she goes, Mike, I don't know what God's doing in your life right now, but you need to go do some business with God. She had no idea what was going on. She had no idea I'd basically just left the house. And what happened in that moment was God used a person to speak directly to my situation. He used a follower of Jesus to point out the very thing in my life that I needed. And what happened in that moment was I was back in relationship with God. It wasn't like I had to figure it all out in that moment before Jesus wanted a relationship with me again. He was waiting for me. God the Father going, I just want a relationship with my son again. And I just broke down in tears, and that's where my relationship with God really started to grow. And so if the myth is that the church is a place where religious people who think that they're good, the truth is that the church is a place for broken people who have found hope. If you hear me say one thing this morning, it's this: it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be in the midst of the struggle. It's okay to feel like you're just barely holding on. It's okay. About 2.5 years ago, my wife and I found out we were pregnant with our second, and found out we were having another girl. I was a little bummed out, honestly. I wanted a boy, but it's all good. Girl, dad life. I got my boy, okay? I already told you that. But we found out we were pregnant, and halfway through, about 20 weeks in, I get a phone call from my wife. I was at work, and she says, hey, I just left the doctor, and they had some tough news. And the doctor had told us that our daughter has spinal bifida and started to explain all of those sort of things. And they're like, your daughter's probably never going to be able to walk, and she probably won't have a life expectancy that's that long. And I remember that moment just breaking down and just beginning to pray and ask God to heal my little girl. The doctor had told my wife that her recommendation, her professional recommendation, was for us to terminate the pregnancy. I remember sitting there on the phone with my wife just praying and saying, God, I just need you to show up right now. God, I need you to do something. I want my girl to be healthy. And 2 weeks later, she went back for some more testing, and the doctor comes back and says, hey, your baby's fine. Your baby's completely normal. Whether it was a bad test or it was a God miracle, I don't care. My little girl is okay. And a few months later, she's born, she's perfect, 8 pounds, 4 ounces, 21.5 inches, my baby girl, Ren. And we're at the doctor, we're excited to go home, and you know that last test that they do, the hearing test, and they do the hearing test, and the doctor says, hey, just so you know, your daughter didn't pass the test, but it's not a big deal. Just so you know, still the chances of her having any sort of hearing loss is about 1 in 1,000, and it's probably just amniotic fluid. And so we went back for some testing a couple months later, and what ended up happening was we went in there, and they hooked her up, and they do all the tests 2 or 3 hours at Seattle Children's, and the doctor comes in and says, hey, I just want to let you know that your daughter is completely deaf. She can't hear anything unless it's 120 decibels or above. And I remember in that moment looking at my wife and the tears welling up in her eyes and just the unknowns and the things that started to pop into my head. Will she ever hear my voice? Will she ever know the sound of her name? What are the things that she'll miss out on? What are the things she's gonna struggle with? I went down the rabbit holes, like on her wedding day, will we dance to a song? It was the unknown. I was in fear. Am I gonna be able to be a good enough father? I was hurting and I was confused. And my wife and I, we pressed into the only thing that we knew how to, which was the church, the community of people that God had put around us. And they began to speak life into us. They began to challenge us and encourage us in this hard season. And what we saw was that God was faithful even in the midst of the hard things. God spoke to us through church services, through biblical community, Christians coming together and having community. And he encouraged us. He gave us inspiration to say, keep on going. So if you're in the room right now and you're in the midst of that unknown, you're in the midst of the storm where you don't know what your next day looks like. You feel like you're just holding on. You don't know what it is that's coming forward. I just want to encourage you to keep on going. Keep on going forward. God hasn't left your side. He is still there. He is still active, and he's still speaking in your life. In John chapter 10, verse 27 through 28, it says, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them. They follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand." Listen, I don't know what you've walked in this room with this morning, but here's what I do know is God is not done with you. God is not done with your story. God is not done with your situation. You are not alone in being broken. This whole entire room is full of people that are broken and have found hope in Jesus Christ alone. He is the one that speaks to us. He is the one that shows up in the dark night. He is the one that is there when we need him most. And what that passage says is that he speaks to us and that nothing that happens can snatch us out of his hand. What that means is you can fall flat on your face 1,000 more times and God is still standing there waiting for his son and daughter to come home. So wherever you're at this morning, God is present and he is speaking and he wants to speak into your very situation in your life. This room is full of people that have found hope in him. The third myth is this: the church is a place where religious professionals work on Sundays. I am not a professional at this, I can promise. In 2017, I told you I was a baseball player. I got a phone call where my dreams came true. The San Francisco Giants in the 14th round were going to draft a guy out of Puyallup by the name of Michael Sexton. My dreams, everything I had worked for my whole life. I was going to have all the money in the world. Everything was going to be good. I signed for $2,500. That went really quick. And it's on my wife's finger, okay? But I remember that year, I remember about 2 months in, we were playing the Toronto Blue Jays affiliate. We were up in Vancouver. And I was facing a guy, he was on the mound. His name was Nate Pearson. He was the first round draft pick for the Blue Jays that year. And I looked him up just this last week because I hadn't paid attention to him since. He's in the major leagues. He throws over 98 miles an hour on average. And when I was facing him that day, he was throwing 99 to 101 miles an hour. And I remember I was the kid that signed for $2,500. This guy signed for $3.75 million, okay? It's like a different level here, okay? And I remember I'm about to face him. There's a runner in scoring position. He's on second base. I'm ready to prove myself, okay? I should have got the $2 million, okay? I was ready. Got myself into a hitter's count. It was 3-1, which just means I was probably going to get a fastball. I knew it was coming. And I got the fastball, and I fouled it straight back, and I was like, my chance, it's over. But I'm going to battle. I'm still going to prove myself. I'm going to be the guy. They're going to be like, man, why didn't we draft this guy earlier? And he throws me another fastball in on my hands, and no joke, the ball hit my bat about 2 inches above my hand. My bat just exploded. And I was like, oh, I'm not good. I'm not good at this game. And I remember going back to the dugout and thinking, I should let the pros be the pros. Like, sure, I'm a good baseball player, but there's a different level to this. There is a level of professionalism that takes place when you reach a certain point. You see, and I think sometimes, if we're honest, we think the same thing about church. That this is a place where we just show up to attend. This is a church where we just show up and we receive and we hear. But I want to challenge you this morning that the church is so much more than that. It's not a place that you just sit on the sidelines. It's a place where you are wanted and that you're needed. In 1 Peter chapter 4, it says this. It says, just as each one has received a gift, use it to serve others as good stewards of the varied grace of God. If anyone speaks, let it be as one who speaks God's words. If anyone serves, let it be from the strength God provides, so that God may be glorified through Jesus Christ in everything. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. If you're sitting in this room, God has given you gifts. He's given you talents. He's given you passions, all for the sake of you to be able to participate in what God is doing in this place. And what I don't mean is just this place in this room, but what God is doing around the world. He has gifted people like you and people like me to participate in what he is doing in the world. And so if Sunday morning, if we think it's a place just for the professionals, that's the myth. The truth is this: the church is a place where I'm wanted and I'm needed. You're wanted and you're needed. You don't just walk in and you're unnoticed. You are a participant. You are an owner. You matter in a place like this. You're not only wanted, you're needed. In 1 Peter chapter 2, it says this in verse 9, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his possession, so that you may proclaim the praises of the one who called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. You are a chosen race, which just means you are a people that God cares about, that he has chosen, that he is intimately involved with. He wants to have a relationship with you. You are a chosen people that the Creator God cares about. And the whole reason why we do what we do is to help point people from darkness to light. I think if you're in the room, whether it's you or somebody you know of someone that's walked into a church in a dark place, and they were struggling and they didn't know where to turn, and so they turned to the church, and it seemed like their life was just transformed. They went from darkness to light. See, in the conversations I've had as I've worked here at Gold Creek, it sounds a lot like this. I used to feel alone. I used to feel like nobody cared. I used to feel like I had no purpose, no direction. I used to spend my whole entire life focusing on my career and my relationships, but for some reason it still left me empty. It didn't fulfill the thing I was trying to fulfill inside of here. I'm still missing something. Maybe you're sitting here in the room, and if you're honest, that's you. I want to encourage you this morning that the people I've talked to here at Gold Creek, at other churches and different places that have had an encounter with the person of Jesus, they've went from that dark place, and it was Jesus that brought them into light. And what the church is about is not about professionals getting on stage because they have it figured out. It's about people in the room that have been transformed by the power of Jesus Christ. It's the reason why here at Gold Creek we say all the time that we exist for those who are far from God, to find hope and purpose in Jesus Christ. Because there's so many people, myself included, that sometimes I don't feel like I have hope. Sometimes I don't feel like I have purpose. And we found that hope and purpose in him. So I just want to invite you in this moment, wherever you're at in the room, whatever it is you walked in here with, whatever your image of the church or image of Jesus, I just want to challenge you with a couple things. Maybe you relate to some of those things I just listed, where you do feel alone. You've given your whole life to your career, yet you still feel like something's missing. Maybe this morning is the time where you just say, you know what, God? I'm going to put my hope in you. I'm going to finally open up the door to a relationship with Jesus and just see what it brings. If that's you in this place, as I pray, I just want to encourage you. By yourself, just say, God, I'm ready. Very simple. It's between you and God. God, I'm ready. Maybe you're in the room and you're already there, and if you're honest, when you look at the church, you just kind of come in and you sit down and you get out before anybody talks to you. You make sure to grab coffee, but I want to encourage you. Maybe for you, this is a morning where you're saying, you know what, I'm done just sitting on the sidelines. I'm done just treating church as a spectator sport. I'm gonna participate and use my gifts and my talents to see how God might use it to win my neighbor over. I know they're in a dark spot, but to take them from darkness into light. See, if it's just me on stage or Pastor Nick or the staff of the church, we won't reach people that are hurting. We won't actually reach our neighbors that need to be brought from darkness into light. So maybe this morning you need to say, God, this is the first time I'm really gonna jump in, and I'm gonna use my gifts. I'm gonna use the things that I'm talented at to try and bring people out of a broken spot into a relationship with your son, Jesus. Would you bow your heads with me? Heavenly Father, I lift up this room. God, I lift up Gold Creek Community Church. I lift up the leadership. I lift up the congregants, the people that have said, you know what, I'm just gonna start going for the first time maybe. Pray for the person in the room that is maybe saying yes to you for the first time right now. Pray that you would fill them with your presence, with peace that can only come from you, and with joy that comes from your Holy Spirit. And to the person in the room that has been coming to church for a long time, but it's time for them to jump in and say, you know what, I'm gonna participate and be a part of what God is doing. I want to encourage them and you to push them and give them direction on where that is. I lift up this morning and these people to you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Can we give it up for Mike real quick? Hey, this is Hannah, Mike's wife, from the photo. Hey, did you match me on purpose? That's so adorable. We didn't plan that.
This guy.
We said we had a big announcement today, and we do. I'm so excited to tell you this, that Mike, Hannah, their beautiful family that you saw, we are announcing today that they're gonna launch Gold Creek Monroe. And so excited for it. That's all we know right now. And so you'd say, hey, when, where? We're figuring all that out. Here's what I want to let you know. Mike's still going to be leading our student ministry in the way that he is. He's got Mexico and summer camp and discipling high school, middle school students, all of that. But they're just in that building process. We're looking at sometime in 2025. Here's what I want to let you know. As a church, you're going to see Mike and his family around in the season ahead, the rest of this summer, into the fall. He's going to be on stage, off stage, in the lobby. Man, if you're interested at all at any level, if you're like, hey, I'm an enterprising person, I love starting new things. Maybe you're not, but maybe you'd say, hey, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to say, God, do you want me to participate in this in some way, shape, or form? Mike's going to be around. You can connect with him. So excited for what God's doing. Yeah, thanks for that word this morning. Can we say thank you to Mike one more time? And man, this is part of the ethos of our church, man, at Gold Creek. We're a sending church. We're a church that wants to reach more and more people with the good news about Jesus, just like Mike preached about this morning. That's what our whole church is about. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to end with a worship song together. I want to remind you, this Tuesday is Creek Nights. Bring your family out, bring a neighbor with you. Will you stand with me and let's worship together as we close our service?
Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't make through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, oh, oh,
Hey, God bless you, Gold Creek. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Take care.